You can't always plan for an illness. In fact, more often than not, it comes out of the blue. I'm a little under the weather right now, and I couldn't really have planned for it. The thing is that serious illnesses are even less predictable than the common cold. Now, I don't really think that you need to be convinced about health insurance. It's something of a given right now. So let's assume that you're convinced that you need it. There are still several questions that you probably have. For example, how much should your cover be? What are pre-existing conditions and how do they impact your premium? How do you cover your parents and at what point does it become too expensive? How do you effectively use top-ups and super top-ups? We'll cover all of that and more on this episode of Big Decisions. My guest today is Vinit Iyer, the Managing Director at Prudeno Wealth. Thanks so much for taking the time, Vinit.
Thanks, Alex, for having me here today.
So I know that this is a conversation that is taken up a lot of times. And I'm glad at this point that we've moved past the need to talk about you must get health insurance to what you should bear in mind. Is that something that you take as a given as well when you speak to people nowadays?
Specifically in my practice, we deal with a lot of salaried individuals. Some of them do agree the need for having an additional insurance outside of the office, but many of them still believe the corporate insurance that they get is still sufficient for them without realizing the fact that if there is an additional claim or if there is a job loss, if they do not have the cover, or if they're going to take a retirement early, then what would they do? So that is something which most of the people in the salaried segment do not think about.
Okay, so that still exists then, but would you also agree then that corporate insurance has also changed over the years and more companies are aware that they need to now provide a larger cover? Previously, it used to be pretty small. And now even within that corporate insurance, you get the option of increasing the cover that you have. A lot has changed, right?
Absolutely. The kind of covers that used to be there about 10 years back, wherein the standard cover was around 3 lakh rupees, that has now been enhanced to anywhere between 5 to 6 lakh, which is coming for free. But the kind of ailments, the kind of hospital bills that one has to have it in the, unexpectedly. So those kind of covers will not be sufficient. So what companies have started to do is they're also offering an option to the employees to have additional covers at a discounted premium. Plus, some of the companies have also started giving an option that in case if you switch to another company or you don't work, you have an option to port the corporate insurance. But one important thing to keep in mind is that at the time of porting, the corporate insurance, when it gets converted into an individual one, you will be underwritten and your health status at the time of conversion will be considered for a decision whether you can port it or no.
That's the primary difference between a corporate cover as well as an individual cover, right?
Absolutely.
There is no check before a corporate cover.
Absolutely.
And practically everything is covered.
Absolutely.
Could you explain why that is significant?
See, generally people are not aware about what ailments that they could have because many of them do not do annual health checkups, so they do not know if their vitals are within the range. And since corporate health insurance covers everything from day one, people are generally not required or they don't think the need for them to, check or even disclose these things. But when you are switching over to a personal health insurance, at that point in time, you will have to disclose all your vitals, whatever was there previously, probably it got cured, or something that they're suffering at that point in time. And that becomes an important factor for them to get the health insurance at whatever is the standard premium.
And the premium can change based on those metrics, right?
Absolutely. And in rare circumstances, if the ailment is uncoverable, you might also face policy rejection or the proposal rejection.
Okay, let's talk about some of the aspects of that corporate insurance as well before we delve into the personal insurance, because I think a few answers will come through that as well.
Yeah.
There is, and I've come across this as well in past employers, where there is a co-pay system even in corporate. That's not always the case, and so in many cases it's completely payable by the insurance company. But how important is it for you to read the fine print even in the group policy that you have with your company?
It's absolutely very important because, first of all, many corporate insurance consumers, the salaried individuals, they do not know about the concept of co-payment. Most of them only get to know at the time of claim.
Yes.
And what is more important is to know that if the claim is around 5 lakhs and the eligible pay by the insurance company is only 4 lakhs, the co-payment is applicable on that 4 lakhs. So for example, if there's a 20% co-pay and the insurance company only approves 4 lakhs worth of claim, you're going to get only 3.2 lakhs. 80,000 you're going to pay out of your pocket, plus the 1 lakh that has not been covered by the insurance company. So in this instance, the kind of money that you have to put out of your pocket is higher than what that initial co-payment percentage looks like.
But I have a question here. So you said that the bill amount is 5 lakh rupees, but the insurance companies only accepted 4.2. Why would that happen?
So there could be several factors to it. One, there could be some room capping, there could be some sub-limits, there could be some consumables which are generally not covered by group health insurance policies. And these shortcomings are now being taken care by the private health insurance companies at a little higher premium. So these things, most of the corporate insurance consumers are not aware.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those so that you create awareness as well, right? Room capping, something that you've mentioned, it's very specifically mentioned. Even at the time of admission, you generally ask this question, particularly if you're going for cashless. And we'll get to cashless versus non-cashless in just a bit. But they will generally ask you what your insurance company is allowing you to take.
Sure.
What should you bear in mind when it comes to this? Because there's also a specific amount of rent per day that is mentioned that you can take, right?
Correct. So some of the insurance companies nowadays on the private side have a room capping wherein you cannot avail a room which is more than X percentage of your sum assurance. Typically that percentage is 1%.
Okay.
For example, if the sum assurance is 5 lakhs, you're not allowed to go for a room beyond 5,000 rupees. In case if you opt for a room which is more than 5,000 rupees, you'll only be paid or the claim will only be settled considering 5,000.
Okay.
It doesn't only stop there. What also happens is in hospitals, now your packages are decided on the category of the room.
Sure.
For example, if you are allowed for a private room admission, and you're going for a deluxe room.
Single deluxe.
Single deluxe.
Yeah.
And if a deluxe room package is say 7 lakhs and a private room package is 5 lakhs, so your entire settlement will happen as per the private room package and not the deluxe room package.
Right.
So it's not only the room rent capping, it's the overall package also deduction that you have to undergo.
So what you're saying effectively is that if you're going for a surgery of some sort, the pricing of the surgery will be based on that single deluxe package as opposed to a private. And it could be a markup of 20%, 30%, whatever it is.
Quite possible.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying every procedure is then billed based on that room.
Yes.
And it could be much higher based on the room category.
Yes.
And you're saying that each insurance policy and possibly your corporate policy as well will give you a particular, so you can avail of say a single deluxe or a double deluxe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's very clear. Let's talk about certain other aspects. So would it be important to say, for example, to have a conversation with your employer and talk about these things? Because as I understand it, this is something that gets renewed on an ongoing basis. And ideally, an insurance policy should not have a copay, right?
Ideally, it shouldn't have a copay. So you should, even as a corporate, the company should try and have a policy without any co-payment for their employees. In some cases, employee doesn't have a co-payment, but they happen to make a claim for their spouse or their children, there could be a co-payment.
Okay.
In case where the corporate insurance is covering parents, their maximum number of the times you have a 20 to 30% co-payment.
Okay.
So usually you should go for, or at least you should request your company to have a policy without any co-payment clause in it.
And at the very least, you should know when there is a co-payment clause, even if it is not for yourself, but then the people who you're covering in that policy.
Yeah.
Let's move and shift gears now and talk about getting that personal insurance, which is, as you pointed out, incredibly important to get. The first and probably most common question that people ask is, how much cover should I have? And would you look at your overall cover? If you're salaried, you of course have the the group cover that you get. Would you add on to that?
So usually people think that a 2 to 3 lakh cover is sufficient. At the max, they think about 5 lakhs, nothing beyond that. Because till the time an ailment occurs to you, you don't think that kind of money would be required. And in case of health insurance, people are conscious about the premium that they pay, and they feel that it's going to be a waste of money. So the less they pay, the better they are. But on the contrary, if an emergency, a health emergency strikes you, then you are left to worry that you have a very, very limited cover. So ideally, what I recommend is that in case of a worse situation like a cancer or a heart surgery or a stroke, which is getting quite common these days, what's the typical kind of a amount that you would need? And to my mind, that amount could be in the range of 15 to 20 lakhs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Recently, one of my acquaintances got operated, underwent an angioplasty. The bill was about 16 lakh in Mumbai. So in that case, if you have a cover of 10 lakhs, you're still short by about 6 lakhs.
Yes.
So you need to at least be having about 15 to 20 lakh rupees of cover to take care of certain situations like this.
Okay. So when you do that, and we'll get into certain aspects in just a bit, but when you do that, you're talking about, suppose you have a 10 lakh with your employer, or between 6 and 10 lakh, and
Yeah.
usually you have the opportunity to top that up to 10 lakh in a
Yeah.
lot of cases, right? So would you say take that opportunity, top it up to 10 lakh, and then use a combination of top up and super top up to move it up to 20 lakhs? Or do you think individually you must have 20 lakhs irrespective?
See, it depends, like at what life stage you are.
Yeah.
For example, if you are more than 45, it is recommended that you take a base cover and have a top-up insurance separately outside of your corporate insurance.
Could you explain how this works? What is a top up and what is a super top up, and how does it work?
Sure. So when this concept of top-up emerged about 10 to 15 years back, what it used to do is it used to have a deductible wherein, suppose there's a 25 lakh top-up cover that you're going and you have chosen a 5 lakh rupees of deductible. So the initial 5 lakh rupees of claim will not be paid by the top-up health cover.
Sure.
Anything excess of that will be paid up to 25 lakhs as a claim amount.
Sure. So
Subsequently.
like in the case of your corporate. So for example, if you have a
Absolutely.
corporate,
Yeah.
you say the first 5 lakhs or the
Yeah.
first 7 or 10 lakhs is deductible, and the remaining up to a certain amount, your top up takes
Yeah.
care of it.
Correct. Correct. Then about 7-8 years back, a new concept came in where there was a slight change that was done, but that was a very, very significant change. And a super top-up plan was launched. The basic difference between top-up and super top-up is that in top-up, every time a person undergoes a medical admission, the deductible is applicable.
Okay.
For example, in a year, if I take a policy today and after 3 months, if I'm undergoing a medical surgery, then if I've opted for a 5 lakh deductible, I will be required to have that 5 lakh deductible either covered through my other insurance or pay through my pocket.
Right.
Say after another 3-4 months, if I'm again required to get admitted and I end up spending another 10 lakhs, again the deductible will be applicable in case if it is a top-up policy.
Sure.
But in case of a super top-up, the deductible is only applicable once.
Okay.
So every time you don't have to
In any given year.
in any given year.
Yeah.
So that's the major difference between a top-up and a super top-up. And most of the insurance companies are now offering super top-up plans because most of the consumers are not aware about this minor difference.
So it's not like you take a top up and then you take a super top up. It's either a top up or a super top up, and preferably based on your explanation, it should be a super top up.
Absolutely. And the
Right?
premium difference is not much.
It's not much. Okay, so I'm glad that you've spelled this out and it's very clear. Now, let's go back to my original question, which is, and you said that it depends. What combination should you normally take? In this case, if you are salaried and if you have the option of going for 10 lakhs approximately, you should take that as well as a super top up. Is that what you would normally do?
One can do that, but what my suggestion would be, in case if you're opting for an additional insurance for an additional premium, which is not very cheap, so might as well use that premium, pay a little more, and take a private health insurance. Because it could be possible that your current company is offering the top-up option. Not every company does that.
Yeah.
Suppose in future, if you happen to switch your job and the new insurance company or the new employer is not giving you the top-up option, then you're stuck.
Okay.
And plus, if you're not able to port the previous policy due to health condition, again, you're in a problem.
So you're saying take a base cover
Yeah.
and take a super top up, irrespective of how much your corporate is
On the
giving you.
private level.
On a private side.
Yeah.
But then how do you decide how much you should take?
At least a 5 lakh rupees of base cover.
Sure.
And anything above that, actually, you can go for a super top-up policy.
Okay.
I've done various calculations of premiums with a combination. So if you go with a 10 lakh base and a 50 lakh top-up, the kind of premium that you
50
pay...
or 15?
50.
50.
The more insurance that you opt for, the less will be the premium.
Oh.
So people think that a 50 lakh super top-up plans will cost you several thousand rupees. In fact, it gets cheaper. So a difference between a 25 lakh and a 50 lakh top-up is hardly few thousands.
Okay.
So the more the cover, the better it is.
Yeah.
Looking at the way the medical inflation is growing, which is in around the range of 14% per year.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So in that case, you have to look for a base cover of 5 lakhs. So if you go with a 550, the kind of premium that you pay will be lesser than a 1050.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10 lakh and 50 lakh is
Yeah.
what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
The question that I had was, how long does the premium get set for? For example, I'm 35. I go to the market. I want to get health insurance, base plan, like you said, and top up. Suppose I'm doing 5 and 50. Okay. Does it get set right now for a number of years and then get reset? How does it work?
So it gets calculated at the time of taking the policy. What is the age bracket that you are in? For example, if you're say 37, you fall in the age bracket of 36 to 40.
Okay.
So till the time you don't cross 40, your premium will remain constant, unless sometimes in between the insurance company, if they have to revise the base rate, then your premiums might increase subject to the approval of IRDA. If that is not the case, your premium visibility is there for that 5 years period. So every 5 years, your premium tends to keep on changing in the tune of 10 to 15%.
Okay. And assuming you stay with the same provider of insurance, you can continue doing that every year. Is there a reset every year, or do you continue paying your premium? At what point do you come to know that your premium is going to go up by 10 to 15%?
So like I said, when you change the age bracket, at that point in time, your premium would change. Otherwise, it doesn't really change.
Okay, it doesn't change. All right. So the other aspect to pay attention to is cashless versus not cashless. And here's where it is important, as I understand it, to choose your provider correctly, right? Because incidentally, we're talking about insurance companies that might be venturing into the hospital space. We're talking about hospitals that have ventured into the insurance space. So we could see quite a lot changing in that arena. But how important is it, in your opinion, to get cashless as opposed to not cashless?
Absolutely, because see, if someone is not getting a cashless claim, he has to pay the money upfront and wait up to 30 days for the reimbursement to come in.
Yeah.
So not everyone will have the bandwidth to have that kind of money available. For example, if the person is short on cash and all his investments are in long term, he'll have to break that, pay capital gains, and then kind of provide for the upfront payment.
Okay.
That is the first problem. The second challenge is that in case if you are in a network hospital, you get a cashless claim. And typically what I've seen is that for certain procedures, these insurance companies have a pre-decided package.
Sure.
For example, if you go to a hospital and you're required to undergo, say, a kidney surgery, which typically costs 5 lakhs, the insurance company may have a package deal for the same procedure for 4 lakhs.
Okay.
So in that case, your sum assurance will be reduced by only 4 lakhs because that's a pre-packaged deal instead of the 5 lakhs that probably you would have to pay in case if you did not have an insurance. So that's the reason why a cashless is important.
Okay, and I must say that I've, because of emergency procedures, have had to see both. And from my perspective, dealing with the TPA after you've got the not cashless, so you've actually paid up front and you're getting a reimbursement, is really painful because you get asked the most horrible questions.
Yeah.
Is that something that happens across the board, or am I in a minority here?
See, as a consumer, if you're applying for a reimbursement, there are 3 things you need to be mindful about. First is the prescription.
Yeah.
Second is the procedure. And third is a receipt. So in case if any of this element is missing, the TPA or an in-house claim settlement team will obviously ask you a question. So it is important that the moment you know that this particular ailment is going to lead you to a hospitalization, you start keeping all those reports ready so that at the time of reimbursement, you have these documents readily available for the TPA for them to assess the claim further.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about somebody being sent to your office to ask whether you consume 1, 2, or 3 pegs of alcohol on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And there's no option for weekly or monthly.
Yeah.
It just assumes that you are a consumer of alcohol when my ailment had nothing to do with alcohol.
Yeah.
So I'm saying most people I've spoken to several people, and it seems like that is the line of questioning that is taken when you're claiming a reimbursement.
Sometimes someone would have to undergo such kind of questioning, but most of the times insurance companies, if they see something abnormal, they would look at the claim at a suspicious level and they would end up doing an additional investigation, which may or may not be directly related to the ailment for which you have made the claim. But you need to understand that the people who are doing the claim settlements, they are also medical professionals.
Sure.
So they look at various angles, which probably as a consumer you may not think about. Because at the end of the day, the insurance company has to shell out money.
No doubt, but then you're also paying them a premium to cover that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about pre-existing conditions, because this is something that people fall into a pitfall in several instances. And I've spoken to people who are smoking one day,
Yeah.
and then the next week they're not smoking, and you ask them why, and they say, oh, I have this health insurance that I have to take up in 3 weeks' time, and you know what, I'm going to stop smoking for a short while. Is that dangerous?
See, it doesn't matter.
I'm not talking about the smoking, of course.
When it comes to health insurance, smoking, whether you're smoking or not smoking, it does not have any impact on the premiums. It definitely has an impact on the premiums if you're taking a life insurance. If people are not talking about their lifestyle habits and they are not disclosing, then it could be a problem later on, in case if there is a claim related to this. So it's always important that you not only talk about your lifestyle habits in the proposal form, but you also talk about things that was there in the past, but probably you would have recovered. For example, if a person was suffering with diabetes and he has taken adequate measures to control it, and now his HbA1c is under control, and he's not reporting, sensing that everything is controlled, why do I need to report? That could be a problem in the future, because if in the future, if that diabetes has to relapse and that creates any hospitalization, then the insurance company will ask you for the first detection report. And if that is found to be prior to taking the health insurance, that provides a legal ground for the insurance company to reject the claim and also cancel the policy on grounds of non-disclosure.
Yes, and there are also waiting periods that are for several diseases, which is why you need to read the fine print when you're signing on the dotted line.
Absolutely.
Can you explain the concept of the waiting periods? Because I've also read that maternity is, or rather maternity-related hospitalizations are not covered in most cases. You have to get a policy within a certain number of years before the pregnancy occurs for you to be covered, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to the waiting period, typically the first 30 days is a waiting period for any natural hospitalization, natural ailment hospitalization. And generally 90 days is a waiting period for any critical ailment hospitalization. And the insurance company looks at it, at such kind of claims very suspiciously. If someone takes a policy today and within 90 days is filing a claim for a heart attack or maybe for a cancer treatment, that is something which is looked very suspiciously. So they have these typical waiting periods. In case of accidental claims, there is no waiting period.
Sure.
It happens right from day one. But there could be some non-life-threatening diseases like a kidney stone, hernia, cataract, which a person can wait for 6-8 months, can think about taking a policy today and think about claiming after 6 months. So for such non-life-threatening diseases or ailments, there is typically a 2 years of waiting period.
Sure. Okay.
Apart from these 3-4 things, generally everything else gets covered.
Okay, that's a fair point. What about your parents? Now, this is a very critical aspect of managing your finances at a particular stage of your life. And would you agree that it at some point you have to decide, because of course the government is taking up programs like the extension of the Ayushman Bharat scheme for senior citizens, but the argument has been made that the network coverages for this particular scheme not very wide, and so therefore you're restricted in terms of the amount of care that can be provided. So from that perspective, what's the ideal way to cover your parents?
If a person is salaried and if he has an option to get the parents covered under the corporate insurance, maybe free or maybe some additional premium, I recommend generally parents to be covered under the corporate insurance.
Okay.
So at least the base cover is taken care. Apart from this, if the family is looking for an additional health insurance, they can go for a top-up health insurance with certain deductible in place, which the corporate insurance can act as a deductible, and that's where your premiums can be reduced. When you talk about government coming up with schemes like Ayushman Bharat, it is still in its nascent stage.
Yes.
With years to come, the network would increase. At the same time, we'll also look at what kind of challenges it will get along, because here we are talking about 6 crore individuals getting benefited out of this.
Yeah.
So this could also...
And pre-existing covered.
Absolutely. And this could also lead to some unnecessary claims.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is another problem psychologically.
To be very honest, I looked at the fine print and not the fine print, but the print on the Ayushman Bharat proposal, and I thought this is too good to be true. But the other aspect that I wanted to talk to you about, you've been advising so many people, and you've probably seen so many cases. What are the problems that you've seen occur, and how can they be avoided?
So first thing, the major problem is a lot of people do not disclose their health conditions at the time of proposal. They think it is immaterial, and only when the time comes of claim, that is the time they understand. For example, there was an incident a few years back wherein a client of mine, while playing cricket, he fell down and he dislocated his shoulder. So he had to be rushed to the hospital. And as a customary check, the doctor asked if he is allergic or does he have any issues. At that point of time, he said that he had asthma, which he did not disclose at the time of claim. Now, once the insurance company got to know that this person had asthma and that was not mentioned, they rejected the claim as well as they cancelled the policy. Now, shoulder dislocation, playing cricket, asthma does not have any relation.
Yeah.
But because it was a material fact which was not disclosed, the insurance company had every right to decline the claim as well as cancel the policy without refund of premium.
Wow. Okay. On the topic of cancellation of claim or denial of claims, when it comes to choosing your provider, of course, a lot of people say you should look at the claim settlement ratio.
Yeah.
What is a good claim settlement ratio?
See, if the claims are genuine, you don't need to be worried as long as the company that you're working with has a strong network of hospitals. It has got good coverages, policy and policy features and benefits. Claim settlement ratio should not be that important factor, but anything above 90% is viewed to be good.
Above 90% and
Yeah.
closer to, of course, beyond 95.
Beyond
Also, there are
90%
some,
is considered
yeah.
to be good. Is something that you should be looking at.
Okay. I think we've covered most of the bases. It's not an intended pun when I was talking about health insurance. Thank you so much for taking the time, Vinit.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
All right, that brings us to the end of this particular edition of Big Decisions. It's been a pleasure bringing it to you. Do stay tuned. Lots more coming up over the course of the day. And this is NDTV Profit.